welcome to this webcast where we have a unique and awesome opportunity to have Mindtickle, Highspot, and Halcyon Knights join us for this webcast. We're excited to talk about the topic today, which is around using Mindtickle and Highspot. And Halcyon Knights has been generous enough to talk about their case study in using the two technologies together and some of the advantages that they've been able to experience as a result of the integrations. So the first thing we'll do here is we'll go through the agenda. I'm Nick Solis. I'm the head of sales readiness at Mindtickle. And Jessica, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, definitely. My name is Jessica Boyd, and I am a revenue enablement manager at Highspot, focused on the learning and development side of things.
Great. Yeah, thanks. And just to kind of give some context here before we jump into the actual case study with Halcyon Knights, we wanted to give just a quick overview on Mindtickle and Highspot, specifically, just a high-level overview of what our platforms are designed for. And so I'll start here about Mindtickle specifically, which our whole goal around our platform is to provide a comprehensive data-driven solution specifically for sales readiness and enablement that ultimately fuels revenue growth. Our whole mission is enabling sales revenue growth, enablement leaders, people in our field of work to continually be able to assess, diagnose, and develop knowledge, skills, behaviors, competencies, all those types of things required to effectively engage customers and be able to drive growth. And kind of shameless plug here, but Mindtickle has been recognized by leading industry analyst research firms and has also been ranked on G2's Best Software 2020 list as the #1 enterprise software product and the 5th ranked software product specifically for sales. So Jessica, with that, if you wouldn't mind giving us Highspot's overview.
Yeah, definitely. Highspot is a revenue enablement platform that really empowers companies to make the most of every customer conversation. So we do that by bringing together really intelligent content management, wrapping it up with guidance, training, engagement, and making sure that there's actionable analytics to follow up on all of those pieces. We really want to make sure all customer-facing teams have what they need so that they can have the most effective customer conversations that really drives consistent rep performance and growth across the company. So yeah, a little bit about Highspot. G2 Crowd, we've been recognized as well by them and some industry leading experts as well. And excited to be here with Mindtickle, one of our partners today. So with that,
awesome.
Are we ready to jump into the case study here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So we would love to introduce from Halcyon Knights, Leah and Nilanthi. A little bit of background on each of them. Leah is our head of sales enablement, and she partners with business leaders providing solutions, technology, content, training, and consultation in sales enablement, focusing on increasing seller experience, customer experience, sales velocity, and organizational growth. Busy lady, Leah. You have a ton on your plate there. That's awesome. And then Nilanthi is the learning and development manager who works with Leah as well. And she is charged with delivering the learning and development strategy for Halcyon Knights across the APAC region, heading up the learning and development team. And a huge component of her role is around aligning technology with Halcyon Knights' continuous learning agenda.
Hi, so just I'm wanting to talk through some of the challenges that Halcyon Knights experienced prior to Mindtickle and Highspot. So just to reiterate, we're a technology search firm dedicated to staffing people right across the tech sector. And so we did have a number of challenges that we needed to address, and that sort of set us on this search. So I think number one was we didn't really have a very clear information architecture strategy. We didn't really have any kind of central repository for our resources. So we had a lot of IP in the business. We've been around for quite some time, over 10 years, 11 years, but didn't really have a go-to spot for that stuff. And although SharePoint was our kind of default repository, we did try to make a go of it, but we just found that it was very hard to navigate and to manage, not particularly intuitive. And there wasn't really a clear segmentation of content or learning for that matter for the various teams in our business. And even when we took to sharing, links from SharePoint out, which we would often do, we found that people would still tend to come to us in operations and say, can you just send me that link? Can you send me this? Can you send me that? So it resulted in a lot of duplication of effort and resources, essentially. So given that this was our situation, we were very email driven in the way that we shared content, whether that be, internal content or external content. So we didn't really have analytics around that or actionable insights. It was very limited to kind of anecdotal feedback. We couldn't really take away any kind of large scale insights from that or really gauge any trends around our internal or external content. So this was a problem for us. And I think from a learning and development perspective as well, we didn't actually have a large scale LMS. So we did have a very functional basic one for induction purposes, but otherwise we didn't have a company-wide LMS. It took a very long time to build content in this particular LMS. So again, a huge time investment there. There was certainly a lot of face-to-face training happening in Halcyon Knights as well. We had inductions and onboarding and frequent peer-led training that was happening. Lots of different activities, but no way to kind of measure the effectiveness of these either or bring it back to anything. And so we kind of lacked that structure again. So this also created a little bit of a lack of consistency of messaging across our region. So we had, people spread out nationally across Australia. We had people in Singapore, we had people in New Zealand. And what we found was that there was a bit of a disconnect perhaps in terms of the type of induction experience, for example, that people might have in HQ in Melbourne, as opposed to say somewhere else. So this was definitely a bit of an issue for us. And in terms of the flexible dissolved working week, this has become very topical, the idea of remote working now, given the times that we live in. But Halcyon Knights was actually ahead of the curve in terms of, empowering our consultants to work remotely. But given this was the case, Leah and I were quite concerned that people should be equipped with everything they needed to be just as successful outside of the office as when they were in the office. And look, there was a bit of a self-interest piece there in that we didn't want people to be consistently nagging us around, can you please send us this? Can you please send us that? We wanted to create really good, independent, well-empowered consultants that didn't need to nag us every 2 seconds either. So that was kind of, I suppose this sets the scene for some of the challenges that we had. So I'll probably hand it over to Leah to talk about how we sort of worked through that.
Yeah, so obviously if we increase the experience of the seller, that has a flow-on effect to increasing a greater customer experience, and that's always a key focus for us. So when we went to look at a solution for this, it was really important to us that all came together in the same place. So learning and content and all the internal resources that we had was in one central place. And it was important that it integrated with our existing tools as well. Also, when we looked at some other solutions, if we just go back a bit, when we looked at some other solutions, we needed the ability to build our own content, our own learning, as there's a lot of platforms out there that just have pre-built stuff. We needed to customize it to us. And we also needed to be able to measure the success of that. And the analytics suites in both HighSpot and Mindtickle have been amazing to do that, to really measure the impact both of the usage internally and also the impact on prospects and customers as well. So we went through a really detailed discovery process. We did go to G2 Crowd and other places like that to see, well, who are the key vendors in sales enablement, sales readiness, who should we look at? And that's where we came across both HighSpot and Mindtickle. We set some really clear requirements, and we talked to the different levels in management, the middle management, the senior leaders, and went through the current pain points and what the requirements were, and brought them on board with that as well. So really selling the vision, getting people excited about how this could make their job easier. Nilanthi also ran a survey across the company about their learning needs, what they wanted. And then when we delivered this solution, we were able to bring that back to, these are the things that you've asked for, and we're delivering this to you now. And one really key thing that was important in our discovery process was getting a trial, being able to get into HighSpot and Mindtickle and try it out before we made a decision on that solution. An investment, into good technology, you need to get that right. And I think it really speaks to HighSpot and Mindtickle. You really trust your product, that you were able to have your reps demonstrate it to us, let us get in there and play around with that. And that really speaks to what an amazing product it was. And we didn't have that experience with some other vendors that we evaluated. So going on to, the next one. Another factor here for us evaluating HighSpot and Mindtickle was the credibility of your client list. So we work recruiting a lot of technology vendors, and we know who some of those big players are, and you had some really trusted brands on both of your client lists. And when you see that, well, if this company is using you, we know that the security and of the system and the capacity of it is good. So that was really critical. And then just coming into HighSpot specifically, some of the things that really stood out for us, very easy to navigate. We're trying to get sellers on board to use this. If it's not easy, they're not going to use it. Very clean. It was easy to search and find things. And also for us, from an administrator point of view, it's quite low maintenance. There was other systems where there is a huge amount of work in the background in tagging and managing it so that people can actually find what they want. And the AI search capacity in HighSpot has absolutely been amazing. Obviously, being able to integrate the two solutions together, being able to pitch out content through HighSpot and being able to track and measure the success of that. It's all good to launch something, but unless you can really measure the impact, you lose a lot of the value. Also having support in our time zone. There's other vendors out there who don't support the APAC region. We wanted to make sure we had access to people, customer success over the phone. We really wanted to make this a successful launch. So I'll hand it to Nilanthi to talk about why we chose Mindtickle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think very similar to HighSpot in ease of use, that was really a big one for us. So we did work through quite a number of learning management systems, learning experience platforms, and I think from an admin perspective, just very, very easy to build. Fast video upload time was a big one for us because we had so much internal content to actually get into the system. Videos, some of them that were quite long actually. And so for us, thinking about uploading that stuff into a platform that would take forever, it just wasn't going to work for us. So we actually did, I believe we benchmarked video upload times on a number of platforms, and Mindtickle won every time. So that was really key for us. And I think we really liked the variety of tools and components that came with Mindtickle. So you can push out a quick update. You've got your missions component, which is your immersive skills. People can, simulate pitching. You've got a variety of assessments. You can tack on a survey to the end of something. You can gather feedback in a really easy way. So this was very attractive to us, that you could access all of this from the platform and kind of mix things up a bit for your people. The mobile app also was particularly pertinent to our guys who are always on the go, particularly pre the time that we live in. They were really on the go, and this idea that they could just, pick up their mobile device and kind of just pick things pick up from where they left in terms of learning. That was very attractive to us. Highly configurable, so we could really make it work for our situation, for our context, for our guys, and kind of set it up in that way. It was easy to do that. And in terms of analytics capabilities, again, the idea that we can measure the effectiveness and the impact of all of our learning activities was really attractive to us. But also, the managers, I think the idea that they also had their own dashboards and were able to really quickly see how their teams are tracking and have some different data points to work off. This was really important to us. Access to customer success. This was a really big one for us. We had a fantastic experience, both with HighSpot and Mindtickle in the process leading up to implementation. But even beyond, it wasn't as though once we signed on the dotted line, then we never heard from people again. We felt that these people were all real partners in the work that we did and invested, and really were great advocates for us. So we appreciated that, and the idea that we'd have ready access to support was very, very important for us. And I think even on the day of launch, I remember sending a number of queries to Mindtickle and people coming back to me immediately. And it just made the whole thing so seamless. And again, customer success has been a really big part of the success of the platform. And of course, Leah's already talked about the integration with our content suite as well, but we just wanted to create that unified seller experience across all our systems, because we've got a lot of moving parts, so we've got to make things easy for people. I think we can move along to the next slide.
Were you talking about this one, Nilanthi?
I think this was you, Leah. You were going to talk about the result.
Yeah, so the result that we saw, obviously we did this launch before COVID hit the world and changed everything. But we were able to really have content-driven selling, really add value to our customers and prospects, not just spamming them with emails, but giving them something of value. We really saw an uplift in the engagement from our clients from that. Lots of positive feedback came through on the content that we were selling out. Also, I think that really ties into Mindtickle with the learning experience, with obviously greater training and being able to train and learn in bite-sized chunks and then put that into practice obviously drives a better experience for the customer as well. And the ability to measure the impact, again, is really, we're able to demonstrate the value internally, but we can also see what's working for our customers and really see where the uplift is. We've been able to have individual learning plans through Mindtickle as well. And in a really challenging market that we're in at the moment across the globe, we've been able to expand our customer acquisition by really giving value to our customers. It's a very challenging time at the moment for anyone in sales, but to be able to give content, to give value, to give that best-in-class customer experience at the moment is really what makes people stand out in a really challenging time.
Excellent. I think we can on to the next slide. So I think the real value of the integration between HighSpot and Mindtickle was really evident in this playbook you see before you. It was a playbook that we termed investing in downtime. So when COVID hit us quite badly here, we were all essentially forced, like many people, to work remotely almost overnight. And leadership approached Leah and I and said, look, we want to be really proactive about how we communicate with our business, how we deal with the immediate impact too of a downturn in the market. And that request came from management, and what they asked us to do was to create a menu of options for our consultants, but they didn't necessarily say use a playbook in HighSpot. So I think it was Leah who decided, look, this is going to be a great vehicle to use this integration. So although it was initially pitched to us as, why don't we create a kind of a master document or a kind of pack that we might send around, or a link to various things in HighSpot to bring things together. The integration, though, made it possible to do something much more interesting than that. So rather than just having sort of a document sent around or even linked out of HighSpot, Leah suggested, hey, look, let's create this playbook in HighSpot. Let's arm people with all the resources that we've adapted for these market conditions, but then a whole lot of self-development resources as well. So I think it was visually just really good to look at. Sending it around to people at that particular time too, I think it created a sense of something just a little bit shiny and new. At the time, everything was in one place, obviously, with links out to the relevant sorts of Mindtickle courses that we'd launched just a few months ago, actually, but we were able to really, put the spotlight on them in this playbook. And I think that, perception is everything to start with. If people feel like, they're being sent to lots of different places to access things, or they're being hamstrung, or we're making their lives harder, then it's just going to be an immediate blocker to adoption. So in this case, it was about pulling everything together in a timely way in one place that looked good. So it was attractive, and then to really, ensure that we were driving optimal engagement. And so I guess the result of that is, if I track the way analytics was moving in Mindtickle at this time, the courses that were featured in this playbook really did get some good airplay with people. So people really responded well to this. We didn't assign things to people either. We actually made everything public and just let people access things. They had complete agency over what they wanted to access initially. And so at this time, I think we actually had peak engagement in a lot of the Mindtickle stuff that we put out. So that coincided with the downtime playbook launch. So 100%, I would say the integration here was really, really maximized, and people responded really well to it.
It's great to hear. I love hearing that story. And even how you guys were able to really pivot with the shift to virtual and embrace it and find great results. It's amazing to hear.
All right, thank you, Leah and Nilanthi, for that overview. It sounds like, I'll just kind of echo a little bit what Jessica said. I mean, it sounds like you guys clearly did your proper due diligence when evaluating how both systems were really going to help you up level the quality and experience that your field reps were going to get. And I love that you talk about the experience itself of the actual consumers of the content, because I think that's a really important piece that that us in sales enablement need to consider. So thank you very much for that overview of how you're using it. And so now we're going to turn to kind of our panel discussion to just dive a little bit deeper with a few questions that we have for our guests, Leah and Nilanthi. So Jessica, if you want to kick it off with the first couple questions, and then I'll follow on with the next.
Great. So yeah, to kick things off, want to pivot towards leadership support as a topic. So wondering, to the two of you, how did you both do the initial sell to leadership on the need for having both Mindtickle and HighSpot?
Yeah, so we to start off with, we really outlined what was the cost of our current situation. So the cost in producing content but having it lost in email, the cost of flying learning and development to Singapore for training and inductions, and a lot of lost opportunity by having resources created that couldn't be found and couldn't be used and couldn't be tracked. So we really outlined what was that cost, and particularly around marketing was creating more and more content, and how we couldn't measure the success of that or even the usage of that content. So we were able to really engage them that way. We also engaged our middle management, so all the leaders who are managing teams of salespeople, and we'd outline with them what are the current pain points and how we saw we could solve that with their solution. And we had a list of requirements that we went through with them and brought them on board. We'd also, at this point, started to look at HighSpot and Mindtickle and some other solutions, and the case studies that you sent us really added some value here. So from HighSpot, we received a case study at the time that talked about the increase that other clients had found in their quota achievement for their sales reps, the impact of that's had on customers. So we're really able to demonstrate the value of that investment.
That's awesome to hear. I think it's really powerful when you lead with those stats and lead with those metrics. What is the cost of doing nothing to get that support from leadership? And I think hearing how you went from, top of leadership all the way down to that middle management level, and driving buy-in from the start and bringing them along on the journey is a huge piece of it. Because when you go to actually roll out a tool or a solution, you have the support and the buy-in to drive success from those managers, so that the reps are more bought in and more adopted to the tool. So I think that's really smart that you guys did that.
Yeah, I think
So
Nalanthi's got some more to add on how we did that with Mindtickle as well.
awesome.
Yeah, just quickly from a learning perspective and selling in Mindtickle, our leadership responded really well. I think if I had to pick one thing particularly was the idea that we could really drive a kind of peer driven learning culture, or highlight the peer driven learning culture that we already had, and kind of really enhance it, because I think Mindtickle talks a lot about this idea of, you know, taking best practice out of people's heads and sharing it and democratizing information. And I think that resonated with them, because we're anyway a very strongly peer-led culture when it comes to learning, and the idea that you've got missions and you've got the ability to sort of share things and receive feedback quickly and create that loop really resonated with them. So I think that was a big one. And then we also spoke about, I think with us, because we were growing, we were at a bit of an inflection point at that time. So the idea that you can just scale out learning in that way, and the experience in terms of building and pushing out learning quickly and in a timely way was very attractive too, and cutting down that face-to-face time, but not just cutting it down, but even being able to do things like the flipped classroom. Mindtickle lends itself to that, because you can build very quickly, push out a great learning part to people before they start, and ensure that your face-to-face time is maximised as well. So they were very, very interested in that too. So again, you know, it was an easy sell in that they were very receptive to the idea of really embedding that culture of learning and boosting our own EVP by saying, look what we're giving our people in terms of their professional development.
That's great to hear. I love that piece around best practices too, being able to really take that and amplify it team-wide. I'm sure that's something that would resonate with any leader, being able to really spread those best practices. That's really great to hear. So pivoting a little bit onto another topic. So onboarding sellers with new tools. So how did the two of you get momentum with your customer-facing teams to start using these solutions?
Yeah. So we rolled out Mindtickle and HighSpot on the back of previously changing a CRM and launching a whole lot of technology. So we did need to be mindful of the capacity of our sellers to learn more technology, and obviously they had a little bit of fatigue from that. But really this was quite an easy sell for them. This was about making their job easier. We'd had a lot of people asking for more learning opportunities. So it was easy to then demonstrate that we were delivering that. And in terms of content, you know, people were so frustrated with losing everything in emails, trying to find things in SharePoint. It was really just a case of selling the benefits to them, and they could see that very clearly. It was good timing. They were ready for that change, and it was something that people got excited about.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you for sharing that. Nilanthi, if we can pivot to you a little bit, can you talk to us about what teams were involved in your initial rollout, and if it was a phased approach, and if so, if not, did it work well? Are there lessons learned or things that you would recommend on that front?
Yeah, so I think the launch strategy for both platforms was successful. It was a phased approach, so we did start with HighSpot, and Leah can probably speak a little bit to that, but we took a team-by-team approach. We did have a number of people involved, so we did get the buy-in of quite a few stakeholders, because that in itself, I think, was very that was pivotal to success, having as many people bought into the vision beforehand. So you know, we had obviously Leah in sales enablement. We have a brilliant learning and development coordinator, Maddie Campbell, who helped us. We consulted marketing around really priming people as well, and really getting out a good campaign. So that was good. And I think we tried to be as creative as we possibly could in launch as well. So, you know, with HighSpot, taking that team by team approach, I believe that we did something like, you know, when we presented to people, we had their heads in a speech bubble with, you know, the questions that they would typically ask us. Where do I find this? Or how do I get analytics on this? You know, we had that. And then we kind of led with that. And so we said, hey, look, this is the answer to all those questions you're constantly asking us. So we did that on a team-by-team basis. And I think it went down really well. You know,
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
It was good. It was great. We had good engagement. And for us, we were able, I think the team by team worked really well initially, because we also made sure that people didn't leave without, downloading the various, the plugin, etc., everything. They were good to go when they left. So that was with HighSpot. And with Mindtickle, we actually just spent a few months creating the platform, introducing it to managers, ensuring that they understood the functions, etc. Took every opportunity to pop our heads into their meetings and just give everything a bit of a plug. And I think that really most definitely ensured that the process was a lot smoother. So we did that. And, we had management and leadership also introducing the platform to people too. It wasn't just us talking about it, it was them. We had a trailer created, we gathered everyone together, we played the trailer, we made sure everyone had downloaded the app beforehand. So there was a lot of priming that was done beforehand, I think, to increase engagement. And the last thing I'd say that we did with Mindtickle was posters everywhere, again, with a little bit of a, want to know how to manage your time better, there's a course for that, or there's an app for that. We did that kind of stuff everywhere. Or, want to learn what the halo effect is, take our unconscious bias course. It Mindtickle. We just got it out everywhere. We tried everything we possibly could, and Mindtickle were great in equipping us for a strong launch as well.
That's great. I love that. So Leah, can you just talk to us about, and you kind of touched on this when you went through some of the specifics of the case study itself, but if you can just kind of dive a little bit deeper on why you felt it was important to have the integration between the two systems rather than just implementing a single LMS type system.
Yeah. So anyone in sales is time poor, under pressure. They don't want to be having to log in and out of a lot of different systems that don't talk to each other. And I think particularly when it comes to content and learning, they're just so interlinked. So like in HighSpot, as well as our external content that we send out to our prospects and customers, we also have a whole lot of sort of checklists and templates and training resources that people can pull off. And it's really important that that's linked to the courses and the videos and the missions and the coaching sessions that they do, that they can, do a quick video, they can learn about how to use something and then go into HighSpot and find that resource and start using it. And then when it comes to things like playbooks, being able to have the playbook, there's a template in HighSpot of what to know, what to say, and what to share. And we've used that quite a bit. And so obviously you've got to have the training in what to know first, what to say, that all comes into the playbook, and then what to share, that's your content that you're sending it out. So it is very heavily interlinked. And I think that really drives the success of it in recognizing that learning and content really come together to make the seller the best that they can be, and then drive that greater customer experience.
That's really amazing to hear how you really package that all together, pulling together all three of those components, know, say, show, with that integration, with the content, all of that knowledge they need, and really packaging it for them so you fit directly within their workflow. That's huge. So it's really cool to hear. Shifting gears a little bit here. So when we think about impact, how have you guys been able to show impact or ROI, and what has been the response from your leadership with regards to impact?
Yeah. So obviously when you're launching something new, measuring the impact is really important. But I think on top of that, before we had HighSpot and Mindtickle, I'd be talking to leaders and they'd be talking about how can we measure the impact of sales enablement? Like, yeah, we can look at whether we increase quota achievement and things like that, whether we gain new customers. But how much of that was the impact of sales enablement is a little bit hard to measure at times. But the analytics, both in Mindtickle and HighSpot, really drive that. To be able to see that this piece of content is being used a lot by our sellers, so they obviously like it, and then it's being engaged really highly with prospects and customers. We can see that the impact of that, and then being able to see when things aren't working so well, being able to pivot and shift and go, well, that piece of content isn't of interest as we thought it would be, so we need to change that and produce something new. And then being able to demonstrate that to our leadership team as well, So we have monthly meetings with all the functions, with the leadership team, and being able to demonstrate this is the content that was produced, this is the measure of the impact with our customers, the same with learning, this is what was taken up on, and we can really demonstrate the value. So it's important for our leaders as well to understand the value of that, because they've made this investment to see that there is a really strong return on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really crucial piece that you call out there as enablement or learning and development professionals, being able to actually demonstrate the value that you guys are providing with the time spent, curating the content or all of that great curriculum in Mindtickle, whatever it may be, and packaging it up, being able to actually say, like, this is the impact we're making, and then pivot your strategy based on that, saying, this is what's not working, this is what is working, how do we do more of what's looking good, and amplifying those best practices. So I think that's huge and really great to hear.
And especially, I just touch on in the current environment, like we launched this before COVID, but not only being able to have our sellers working effectively remotely, but recruitment as an industry is hit pretty hard in COVID. People are stopped hiring when there's economic challenges on the horizon. And by being able to give valuable insights to our customers and our prospects through content, we've actually been able to engage new customers, onboard new customers in that time. And that's really challenging. So I think that's a great success story that amongst, I know that I'm certainly receiving a lot of business development emails, but amongst all that noise that's happening at the moment, we were able to stand out and actually give something of value to people. And the feedback that we got from that to then become their recruitment partner in a really challenging market.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the importance of relationship building during this time, that you're actually being able to continue to do that and have those relationships stronger than ever. It's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
So as we think towards the future, what are the two of you really looking to take on next? As you think about what is the next contribution you want to make for that next level?
Yeah, I think a lot of it at this point is about consolidating. It's about building out more content, continually mapping that to the customer journey, the sales person's journey, and really measuring what's working, what's not, and continuing to build out new insightful content that adds value. And then, the company's been through some mergers and acquisitions, so we've brought on new brands and then bringing them onto the value of HighSpot and using content, and same with Mindtickle.
Yeah, and just to add to what Leah has said, I think from a learning perspective, our leadership currently is exploring the idea of kind of an incentivized program around learning and development and performance. And for me, that's a very exciting prospect. And I think that these two platforms will be actually pivotal in that. So the role of both of them. And I'm really interested looking to the future in driving more of even further this idea of a layered approach to the way that we learn. So the idea that someone will run a peer-led training and then we're pushing out a quick update that then sends people into HighSpot with some performance support material, and then they'll go out and pitch, but creating more of that so we create that kind of stickiness. And I think that's how you create kind of high performance learning ecosystems. So we're really interested in kind of supercharging that and taking that to the next level.
That's really exciting. I'm excited to hear how all that goes and see those results come out.
Yeah, you guys are glowing examples of of how a successful content distribution and execution would play out in a sales enablement scenario, especially having the advantage of using both Mindtickle and HighSpot. And you guys have done a great job explaining not only your process but your outcomes, which I think we're all very interested in. So I know for me personally as an enablement professional, there's a lot of nuggets that you guys mentioned throughout the conversation that I think we can take back and think about as we're trying to delight our internal customers. So just to kind of close it out here, are there any final words of advice that you would give to your peers in terms of enablement, in terms of platforms, in terms of execution, engagement, anything that's on your mind that you would want to close us out with? Nilanthi, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think post-COVID, and particularly the context that we're working in now, and remote work being the reality that it looks like we might live in for a while, I think, sales enablement, sales readiness, learning development, these functions, we need to be thinking more broadly, not just about the content that we're creating, but also how do we get people to connect around that content, so connect the connection element. And to me, I think a technology that supports that knowledge sharing piece, the idea that, you can get, data and analytics from the stuff that you're sending out externally, an immersive skills component in your learning platform, things that invite discussion, collaboration. These are going to be really, really important. So I'd say that this is critical for us at this time, particularly when we're working in this distributed way. And probably the last thing is just think about, investing in tech that really promotes agility and responsiveness, particularly at this time. There's really something to be said for being able to push things out really quickly, I think, at the moment. And, a timely video pushed out right now probably does beat, in some instances, weeks and weeks of laboring over something to push it out from a content perspective. And I think these platforms really enable you to do that, to be very responsive and agile. And just remember, I guess, that I think being timely in our delivery of whether it be e-learning or performance support, whatever it is, I think it's really critical at this time.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think a couple of pieces of advice from my perspective as well is really get the leadership team on board and keep them close all the way through, because they're the ones that then drive that value down to their teams and to the sellers. And one way that we demonstrated value to them early on is, or with any solution I do, is understand what's our average deal size, how much does the system cost? And then you can say to them, well, this system is supposed to make us more efficient and effective, and we only need an extra 1 or 2 deals per year to break even on the cost of this system, and then showing value to them that way in terms of an investment. But also another thing is getting trials, I think, is really important. It is an investment, so it is important to get it right. And as I said, the value really came through from Mindtickle and HighSpot, that you trusted your product so much that you were able to give us a guided demonstration and then let us have the opportunity to try the system ourselves. I know when we tried some other solutions, when we got into a trial, either it became apparent to us about what a nightmare it was going to be to manage this on the back end, or some vendors wouldn't allow us a trial at all, which really made us raise some questions. And again, it's really important to have that unified experience. We looked at these 2 solutions from the beginning together, because they are so interlinked from the seller's perspective.
That's great advice. Thank you for adding those bits at the end there for us to all think about as we evaluate technology and platforms that are going to make us more efficient and help our sellers ultimately sell more software, which is why our jobs exist, right? So really appreciate it. And on behalf of HighSpot and Jessica and myself and Mindtickle, we want to thank you for participating in this and for giving not only your experience, but also your practical tips and feedback and advice on how all of us in sales enablement can kind of uplift all of our efforts to make the experience better for ourselves and for our sellers. So we really thank you for your time. And thanks for implementing both systems together and having a great experience, giving us something to talk about today. So really appreciate it. Thank you.